Welcome to Confessions of an Early Career Researcher, the show where we deep dive into the journeys, challenges and successes of ECRs. Whether you're just navigating the early stages of your career or you're a more seasoned ECR, this is the podcast for you. Join us as we speak with ECRs at varying stages of their careers to discuss their experiences and unpack their academia survival tips. I'm your host, Leonie Smith, a philosopher and lecturer at Lancaster University. And today's episode is all about how to be well as an ECR. So a very salient topic probably at the moment for most of the people listening to this podcast, how to be well as an ECR. So I'd like to first of all just welcome my guests Inés and Maddie and start by maybe asking you to introduce yourselves, who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and we'll sort of take it from there. So maybe I'll start by asking you, Maddie.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Maddie Hewitson. I'm a Leverhulme Early Career Fellow at the University of Birmingham, and I specialise in British art history, mainly in the 19th century.
Fantastic. And Inés?
And hi, my name is Inés. I am a writer and a creative writing lecturer, also at Lancaster. Yeah, I love writing all things speculative.
So, Inés, you're at Lancaster now, obviously an ECR. What are some of the challenges you would say that you have either faced in getting to the point that you're at or maybe in the situation you're in at the moment?
Yeah, I think, well, one of my main challenges was during my PhD actually suffering from burnout, which I think is... I think it should be talked about way more in academia. You know, I remember, I just, if you don't know what it is, it's basically when you start feeling just so tired and so overwhelmed by all the responsibilities, and you feel like you're not able to reach the standards that probably you've set to yourself. I mean,
very common, right, for ECRs, because it's this kind of career where everything depends on your brain and what you're doing. And the standards can be quite hard to navigate, can't they?
Yeah, and I think it's also mainly how precarious it is. You know, even as a PhD, I could already see that. I had funding, but I still had to have other jobs on the side to survive. Yeah, so I think that was a really big challenge. And I would say in my experience, what really helped me through was, well, actually talking to the people about it, to be fair. I remember going to my PhD supervisor and she just gave me an article about academic burnout.
So that's a starting point.
Yeah.
I mean, even just realising that, it's so common that there's an article called academic burnout.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, talking to people was a big part.
Certainly. And I think now, in hindsight, of course, now, that is almost, I think, 10 years ago that I suffered from burnout. But in hindsight as well, I think when you start in academia, there is so much pressure to be like the best in your extremely narrow, teeny tiny topic, whatever that is, right? And always have to prove again and again. And I think, I don't know, I'm not sure how useful that is, to be fair.
to wellness in general, yeah.
Yeah, why do we have to be why do you have to be the best? I mean, the more I learn about anything, the more I realize I know nothing about that topic. And that's fine.
Yeah, not just fine, pretty healthy, actually. Yeah. So there is something, isn't there, about this kind of career where there's a pressure. Yes, there might be pressure external. We all know about the job market and all these kinds of things. But actually, a lot of the time, the pressure comes from inside, feeling like you have to be the absolute best and most knowledgeable. And do you think you've moved away from that?
No, I mean, it's really difficult. But to me, I think what I'm telling myself these days is, I just want to enjoy the process. It's all about the process for me. And I know this as a writer too, because, when you're a writer, you also face so much rejection and it can be so hard to get your books published with commercial publishers, etc. And I'm just thinking, I just want to embrace the process because I love the process of, in my case, the process of writing.
Yeah.
And nobody is going to ever take that away from me. You know what I mean? And that's empowering. I don't know.
I love that no one can take away from you the fact that you actually enjoy this process. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll come back to some of the things that you've brought up as well. And so, Maddie, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges you faced really in terms of wellness, in terms of staying well as an ECR, either in the past or now, and how have you started to deal with that, if you have?
Absolutely. I think my academic journey has been filled with many fantastic opportunities, all of which so far have been fixed-term contracts. So I'm on my third fixed-term contract now, and what that comes with is a sort of inbuilt anxiety almost as soon as you start that it will be over soon and you'll have to go back on the job market, look for the next thing, not know where that next opportunity might come from. That also has added challenges of having to move from place to place to be able to take those opportunities. Yeah, again, kind of, new houses, new settings,
it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just, it's an interesting thing because I think sometimes when you start out you think, it's just a case of getting the job, but actually it's while you have the job there's a lot to think about. Where's the next job? How do I move to where the job is? Those kind of things.
Absolutely. And academic timelines, you're thinking about this 12, 15 months out as well. So yeah, almost as soon as you're settled into something, you may well have to be sort of positioning and thinking about what might come next. So yeah, I think that mentally is a really challenging thing. You want to immerse yourself in the work that you've come to do in this particular opportunity, but yeah, in the back of your mind you are just thinking about, right, okay, how do I ensure I land the next one, and life, I pay the bills and there's a roof over my head that I can continue with this.
Does that have an effect on how you work on a day-to-day basis? So some of the decisions that you make, do you think, thinking about this long term, what might be some of the ways it changes how you behave maybe in the job you've got? Yeah,
absolutely. I do think, maybe you take on certain opportunities with a mind to kind of cultivating the next one. I know that networking's been another kind of topic that you've spoken about, as that being a really kind of important aspect. Yeah, and sort of maybe you do put this kind of undue pressure on yourself to make sure things are published, outputs come out in a certain period of time, so you look your best and you look your most sort of attractive on the job market.
Academically.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. You're the belle of the ball on the market, as it were. So yeah, absolutely. I think, there's definitely not only the sort of pressure to be the best, but also do it in such a sort of short, compressed sort of period of time as well. So, yeah.
And that will make some impacts on the types of projects that you start and do, because we hear it a lot, the publish or perish kind of mentality. I mean, the truth of it is that we know that in terms of getting the next role, the next step, there's a lot of hard work, and there are elements of luck, and there's being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes people have loads of publications, sometimes they don't, sometimes it's something else. And so you're very aware of that need to keep all the angles looking good.
All those plates.
Looking attractive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And how... If that's the case, then how do you not let that be overwhelming while you're doing the job? Have you figured out the key to staying sort of well while doing that?
Yeah, I think for me, family and maybe some of my relationships outside academia are kind of incredibly important ground and center me. I think it's very easy to maybe make academia your family and your sort of the
friends,
centre of what you do, but I think remembering that there's a life outside of it is really important, and you can kind of get your fulfillment and maybe some of your stability from those other sources as well.
So that's really interesting. And the two things that you've kind of touched on, so in us kind of talking about these, some of them are quite internal sort of pressures and things that can happen to you. Other things they're very real. There are the external structural difficulties of being an ECR in this current climate and what that means to be an early career academic. But what you're saying is part of the way through that is to not let it be everything.
Absolutely.
You're not the first person, I think, on some of these episodes, for anyone listening, who's going to bring up the importance of, I guess, friends and actually people outside of just your narrow field, maybe. So that's been important for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of my most recent experiences, which has had a huge impact on me as an ECR, is becoming a parent, going away on a period of maternity leave and then re-entering academia after that leave as well. A hugely transitional sort of period in my life. But yeah, now with a keen sort of perspective of being a parent in academia, a mother in academia. And so looking for those sorts of role models as well, a very sort of different and kind of, I guess, informal sort of type of networking that I'm doing now.
So again, that's very interesting. And I think I would like to ask you both about this a little bit. So we talked about, have friends and maybe stay in touch with family. And these are all radical ideas, I realise, for people in academia. But stay in touch with these things. But you've mentioned the idea of these kind of informal networks. So for those listening, we will have an episode where we talk about more kind of formal networks and these kind of things you can join. But something you said there, it's not just about finding people to hang out with. It's people who maybe have things in common with you, Maddie. Inés, how important have kind of these more informal networks or connections been to you in dealing with it? Have they been important to you?
Yeah, of course. Extremely important, because I think a lot of the issues we are facing are systemic issues, are flaws within the system. Just what you were saying, Maddie, right? Like the huge insecurity in these kind of like research posts. Why? When actually, if you were being nourished in an environment, if you were given the time to and the security to work, I assume your research could be even more ambitious, and even more interesting and more beneficial to all of us. So I think, I think there is ways of, I suppose, being aware of that, but also fighting against that. And one thing maybe, yes, making sure you have a life outside of academia and understanding that, and it's a difficult thing, because I've been thinking about this recently, and because we do what we love.
Yes. This right? is the thing, isn't it?
It's a blessing and a curse, because it's really difficult for me to separate myself from my job, because it's my writing and it's talking to my students about writing. So
it's literally your brain.
I love that, but I would say, yes, making sure you have that community outside. And I would also say boundaries and modeling a behavior that is healthy. I think that's really, really important. For the longest time, at least, again, this is only my experience, but I feel like there is this thing where like everyone works weekend, everyone goes above and beyond to fulfill all of these responsibilities, to publish or perish, like you were saying, which seems like we are in the Hunger Games.
I think it's probable that I kind of get that sort of analogy you just made. But so whether these are external pressures or internal pressures, this feeling that it's never going to be enough, actually, in some ways.
And that's liberating, because as I say, for me right now, I think it is important. I say, I don't work weekends because I need that life, or, not answering emails 24/7 because, we are only human. And I think, modeling all of these behaviors, I think for me, it is important. And I think it's also a survival tactic as well. Again, having suffered from burnout, there is just so much you can stretch yourself before you collapse or break. So, that would be my advice to understand that, and again, it's very similar with art. I mean, it's never enough, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to get zen about it,
it's
really.
Such an interesting, it's such a weird situation, because, again, you love what you're doing quite a lot of the time, whether that be the teaching side of it, whether it be the research side of it. It is genuinely enjoyable. That's why we pursue these careers. And so even if there weren't external pressures, this is kind of sort of drive to keep going and going and going. So this boundaries idea, it's something a lot of people say, isn't it? Like set boundaries and stuff. But it can be very hard to know how and where to put those boundaries.
I think it might be kind of one of the best or most important skills as an ECR, so moving from that PhD to that ECR identity, whatever you might want to call it. Yeah, this idea of boundaries, but also kind of, I think a way a kind of mentor put it to me, knowing how to say no and what to say no to. So starting to be a little bit more strategic. I think when you're a PhD student, it's, Scrabble, say yes to everything. Yeah, work those weekends, work those evenings. But you're not going to be able to do that through a 30, 40-year career, are you? You're going to burn out, you're going to fall away. So learning, I think, what to say no to, what boundaries to keep in place, that's how you stay the course. That's how you make it through to, you know, the shiny pearly gates of a kind of long-term academic career.
When about the pearly gates metaphor.
Indeed, when it comes to the mentality and the well-being of that, I think it's really important.
That just really hit me, actually, when you said there's going to be a 30 or 40 year career. So for some of us, so again, I came in a bit later into academia, had a different career before. Might be 20 years, might be 30 years, but it's a long stretch. It's what they said, a marathon, not the sprint.
Yeah.
I think that's actually something you can easily lose perspective of when you're sort of trying to get the next step, keep going in the career and so on. But it is a 30 or 40 year career, and you need to be well, and you need to keep enjoying it. Right?
Yeah,
you need to
do 30 years of weekends and evenings and never seeing anyone or having a holiday. You've got to build that in.
You're saying it and it sounds so obvious, but I'm just thinking about myself as one thing. I hadn't really thought about it. I can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that, can you? Because that's going to lead to potentially the burnout that you kind of already experienced in your PhD. So this boundaries thing. So you say people said it to you. Say no, when to say no. How do you decide? So I'm going to ask Maddie, since you brought this up, how do you decide?
So I think of it as a kind of like a barometer, almost like a kind of, a needle pointer. You do it, don't say yes, say no. And I guess at the minute, working on a kind of this Leverhulme, so a project that I've proposed, I've come up with the outcomes. There it's quite easy. I've made a list of 4 things that I'm going to do in these 3 years. And so it's a very easy question to ask.
You're staying focused.
Am I going to fulfill one of these 4 things by saying yes to this opportunity? Yes, great, let's do it. No, okay, this is going to be a pass. I'm going to have to move.
So you're fighting the temptations.
Absolutely. For that sounds like a great, conference. I'm sure I'll hear some really cool papers. But does this have anything to do with my project? Right. Okay. A month long or week long, working group to talk about this. Is that enough days to write, the book, the article? Yeah. So at the minute, I've got this, really clear set of objectives. So that has helped to hone this ability to say no. That's I valued that a lot.
Well, I think that's useful as well because and Inés, you might be more the same kind of position I'm in now. So I was a Leverhulme researcher, but now as a lecturer, quite often you've not quite got the same boundaries around the work. How do you find yourself navigating what you do, what you don't do?
I think I have priorities as well, which I think is a very healthy thing. So, I work with the students, I work with human beings. That's a priority for sure. I cannot cut corners with them. I couldn't. I care a lot about them. But so that would be one priority. And the other priority is my writing because that's what I love, and I would still be a writer even if I was not working in academia. And it's a weird thing when you are an artist, I suppose, because then you feel like you have this kind of like double career that you're trying to balance, mostly unsuccessfully. Being a writer, but also a creative writing lecturer. So those are my 2 main priorities.
So maybe we need to do this thing of even if we haven't got a very specific project going on, be very clear on these are the things that matter to me. These are my priorities and what I want from what I'm doing here and where I'm going, and make sure that those things, those are the things I want to put my time and energy into. And I might not be perfect and brilliant at all these other little things that kind of come along.
Yeah. And I think also communicating, even with our managers, that sometimes some workloads, I'm thinking about lecturers here, are just unmanageable. And I think the more of us who just say, look, like, this is not humanly possible because I also need to breathe and have a family and have friends.
You're still breathing. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
That's small things.
Yeah.
So communicating that and fighting for that as well, I think is, again, I think it's really important. And I'm just so grateful to people more senior to me that are also helping in that and setting that example.
So there's something as well about the further we go about role modelling these things.
Yeah, I think it's so important.
And maybe our past experiences can help us do that. But you've come back against this idea of the more of us that do X or the more of us that say X. And there's this sense where you kind of need to know what's going on with everybody else, maybe. And this sort of takes us back to thinking about maybe communities and how do you find this stuff out? Like, how do you sort of build these more informal networks and ways of realizing, oh, actually maybe I don't have to say yes to everything I'm doing. So have you had experience of finding people?
Oh my God, it's so funny. But when I was at a previous post, not at Lancaster University, we were going through a strikes, and I was in the picket line, and I met so many friends there from all over the university.
That's just showing up to a strike.
Right? To a common, we all have a common goal. And for the first time, we were all talking to each other, and I was talking with people from other departments, from like psychology and engineering. I'm a writer, so engineering, that's a scary department for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a philosopher. What goes on in engineering?
I'm even allowed near them. And that was so much fun. And again, like talking to other people and seeing other ways in which people are coping with different things or how they are setting boundaries and just talking openly about it. I think we forget that we can connect with other people and how empowering and fulfilling and inspiring it is as well, to be fair, because it's thanks to, having these connections, say, that then we further down the line perhaps have collaborated in research projects or have helped each other.
You can often have these benefits you don't expect just from chatting. It's interesting. So in your case, there was obviously not a formal thing that you got involved, but you met people through this kind of way. I do think it's very easy to forget actually the importance of maybe carving out time for spending time with other people, actually treating that as just as important maybe as some of the other tasks that you have. Have you kind of done that and gone beyond it? So you've met people at these kind of things. How do you stay in touch with people? They're my friends, I suppose. So I just check in on them, chatting. Friends.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that whole experience going through all of that really brought us together, and they're from all sorts of different disciplines. And then just talking as well. And I think, again, reaching also to the local community outside of the university has been also so inspiring. So, because I'm a writer and writing is quite a lonely thing. And I'm also an extrovert. So,
so you find people energizing?
Yes.
But the things you're passionate about require you to spend time on your own.
Kind of like a happy middle for me has been writing with other people in a room in silence, but like feeling that I am with other people. And I find that actually so inspiring. So, I reached out to our local library and asking if they would be happy to host like an informal writing group, but a writing group just to write, not to exchange writing or exchange feedback.
Just where people could just be in the space of other humans. Yes. So there's a little bit of structure to it, and that there's a kind of accountability that comes with being with people. Yeah. I think we're all nodding a bit here, but yes.
And that's been so much fun this year. We started in January. Our local library has been so kind to give us that space for free. I mean, they've been incredibly generous. Please do support your local libriries. They're amazing places.
Which is your local library? Let's mention.
Lancaster Central Library. They're amazing. Okay. The staff there are just, the best. Yeah. And we meet every Wednesday, and it's open to everyone, literally anyone who wants to come and write. And it's been so fun. Yeah. I don't even know if people ever going to even turn up, how these things are. And we have regulars now, but we still kind of have like new people every week. And it's people from all ages, from all backgrounds, and we just chat about writing. And that reminds me that, what I do is also important outside of the university.
Yes. Okay, good. So that's interesting as well. And I think what's really great about the example you've given as well is that's something where you were like, what do I need? Yeah. And you started it and you did it, because I think that can feel quite daunting as well. Yes. To actually sort of be the initiator. But then you find sometimes it might not work, and we maybe talk about that in some of the other episodes of this podcast, but sometimes it does. And just keep trying to find the ways to find community, to find people. So Maddie, how have you found people? You mentioned sort of becoming a parent and being an academic, that became part of your identity. How have you found the people?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the main way I've gotten involved in this university is through some of these staff networks that exist. And interestingly, there was a celebration week at Birmingham of all of the different staff networks. And in the kind of summary, it said that overwhelmingly the members of these networks were from professional services rather than academics. And I was really surprised to hear that. And they said that this was kind of true across the board at different universities and all of the networks. So there's an LGBTQ network, there's a disability network. The ones that I'm involved in are the parents and carers and the women's network. But really interested to hear that the academics weren't subscribing to these networks, because they've been amazing resources for me, very practical kind of resources that you can get. So when I first started at Birmingham, I was still breastfeeding and pumping, and on the sort of university website, it said the only place to do that was the biomedical sciences building, which was a 20-minute Birmingham away.
Right?
Exactly. But when I dropped a message into our kind of Teams chat of the Parents and Carers Network, immediately I had 5 suggestions of much easier, closer places where I could go to pump throughout the day. So yeah, just that kind of resource sharing. They even do things like school uniform swaps at the start of the year, which I'm not there yet in my parenting journey. But I mean, that's just amazing to have that kind of support. And so, yeah, and that kind of resource sharing opportunity.
Why do you think there aren't more academics in these groups?
I was really surprised and struck like that. I'm not sure that I do have an answer. Maybe it is just that perception that, academics are sort of much more on their own. I guess actually, in the case of particularly parents, that's not something you should be bringing into your work. So yeah, I have found that there is much more of a sort of maybe foot forward about women in academia. I've seen a lot more kind of events and advocacy around that, far less about being a parent. I think maybe there's a perception that that's something you kind of leave at the door when you come into work, and not something you should.
So having caring responsibilities and being a parent might be, whether it's objectively true or not, might be seen as not part of what it is to be an academic, and obviously not true, right? Because we know so many parents and carers. So maybe this maybe comes back to some of the things you've both been saying about boundaries as well. When I think about maybe professional services roles, there's often a clearish job description. There are working hours. There are things that go with that. There are policies and expectations about it. And yeah, we have policies and so on as academics, but quite often it's this keep writing, keep teaching, just keep doing things and sort of follow your own path, which is important, but maybe it leads to not recognizing the value and the need and the importance of joining in with these more informal networks and what that can mean for your well-being to help you get through all the rest of it.
Another thing which I think is really undersubscribed, but I think is quite common, is most universities will allow you at least one day of bookable annual leave to do some volunteering. And again, when I tell people about this, exactly, oh really? I've never heard of that. And I think that's such another important way of giving back and maybe balancing your kind of well-being, is to be of service and help to others. So I volunteer for a perinatal mental health charity and a food waste kind of charity cafe as well. And yeah, when I feel that my kind of cup is really empty and I'm kind of running low, yeah, an opportunity to connect with people that way. And Inés, it sounds like you're kind of doing that through your group as well, giving that space and opportunity to others. That's such an enriching, rewarding, energizing opportunity. And
it's something we can lose sight of, can't we? So paradoxically, you might think, what can help you recharge and feel better and sort of recollect your humanity, maybe is just helping other people in a very different context and connecting with this broader community. So I think a lot of people now will be, who are listening, running to go and find out if their university has policies and things, and find these things they can do. Because too often, again, I think as an ECR, you can feel like, everything I do has to be somehow instrumentalized or made part of what I'm trying to do. So, well, if I'm going to do something in the community, surely I've got to show impact or do something. Yeah, you get this kind of message. But actually, if we're going to make this 30, 40-year stretch or more or less work for us, we need to have connections. We need to remember who we are. We need to remember the broader picture, and it can be good for us. So very selfishly, it's good for you. Yeah. That's what you're finding. Yeah.
You know, underpinning the idea of the British university is the idea of a civic good, you know, Birmingham particularly celebrates this idea that it's a civic university. And I know others, you know, built in the 19th century do as well. So, yeah, we should be a good. And, yeah, we maybe don't need to, as you say, instrumentalize it in quite so a precise way. But, yeah, how are we doing good for ourselves, but for others as well, upholding and uplifting kind of that community feeling?
Does that resonate with you? I mean, you talked about the library.
Yeah, 100%. I do wonder again, like if academia as it is now in this country is pushing us to be more individualistic and obsessed with our own productivity and our own outputs. But as I think we both know by now, that's not healthy and it's not really the way. So I do wonder if there should be more emphasis on this, even for like PhD students. And I'm starting to have my PhD students now, and I will certainly strive to pass down this message, but of like also how important it is to create community, to feel like to feel held by that community as well in the university, outside of the university, because I don't know, like nothing happens in a vacuum in a way. Research doesn't happen in a vacuum either. It's not only the one person producing all this research, right? It's communities, it's connections that you make, it's these networks. And that's just so important. And I feel like, at least when I was doing my PhD, nobody really, went to a lot of workshops about, I don't know, like how to write your CV or how to write a paper for a conference, etc., or go to a job interview. But I do think this is equally important. And there are other ways of making things, right? Because like you were talking about, being a parent, of course. Why is that not part of the university as well? We are human beings. And I think in other countries, I'm thinking about the Scandinavian countries because I have friends who work at universities there. They are more accepting to this idea of you have a family and maybe everyone leaves the office at 3 p.m. because that's where the children come out of school and that's fine. Men and women,
And maybe it is this thing of maybe we need to get more used to, well, if it's not being made very salient to us that these things exist or that this is part of identity, then maybe we just need to say this is my identity and I am going to find the people and the way of being this person that I am.
Absolutely.
To stay well.
I've really tried to be upfront about being a parent. Like, for example, I've said it and I've gotten kind of stares as in, like, oh, why are you bringing that up? Why would you mention that? So, sometimes it's not always a kind of welcome topic of conversation, but I feel it is really important exactly to role model and to, kind of just be, upfront.
And that can be true whether it's being a parent carer, coming from a different background, being maybe somebody who's not used to the UK culture and climate, being from a working class background, all these kinds of things, they are part of identities. And maybe there's a tendency for us to try and compartmentalize these things away when actually we all bring it to who we are and what we're doing. You talked about role modeling and you said something about kind of finding these senior people that you find quite inspiring and so on. Do either of you have mentors? Have you had mentors, officially, not officially? And how on earth have you found them?
Oh my God. I mean, mentors have literally saved my life.
Okay.
Academically, as a writer too. And I think, I actually met two of my best friends through literary events as well. So again, like I suppose doing things that I am a writer, so I love going to literary events, but that not necessarily just the university, right? So I met these two friends. They're like my older sisters. They're also writers. And they really, it's been so eye-opening to just hear their experiences as they were a few years ahead of me.
So you just found through this quite informal process.
Yes.
These are people that I've got on with and you just said, I want your help. Can you help me?
Yeah, pretty much. And just being really good friends. So with one of them, we meet every week to write together via Zoom. And we just write together and we just talk, about the university, about our writing careers and having that kind of like regular contact. And it takes a bit of time, but I don't know, maybe it's because I am an immigrant. So my friends are my family, like, because I'm in this country on my own. And just allocating time also to, for example, for that hour a week to just catch up with my friend over Zoom and then write together a bit.
These are people that are very important to you, and so you make time for it.
Exactly.
That's really useful as well. I keep coming back to this.
Yeah.
Make the time, and not be an extra, but see it as part central to thriving in academia, not just surviving it, getting through. Yeah.
You have to see it as a cycle, I think, rather than just like a straight line you are kind of running through. And I say this to my students as well. We write, we publish, but also you need time to get inspired, to get the ideas that then will turn out into these publications. So,
and that's true whether it's academic writing or fiction. Quite often, you need the inspiration, right? Yeah.
So understanding, and this is so hard for me, right? Because I'm the kind of person who cannot stay still for 1 second. I always need to be doing something. I came down here on the train and I was crocheting all the way because I cannot just sit on a train.
I expect people listening, many people will have this similar kind of thing.
So I just want to frame it by saying that I'm not good at this at all, but understanding that, rest and relaxation are not just necessary, but also conducive to my best research.
That's great. I love that. And there was something that I thought was interesting, just you saying the crocheting. And while it is doing something, but it is, again, doing something that's just engages your brain differently. And the reason I found that interesting was because I don't know if either of you had this experience, but I found when I was first really going through PhD and early careers, I'd stopped reading fiction. I stopped doing fun kind of things like this. Is that true? And I've recaptured that the last few years. Maddie, you were nodding there.
Yeah, although unfortunately, firstly, I was asleep on the train this morning. I took a nap, so I didn't do anything productive or useful. But secondly, unfortunately, yes, I've not managed to claw back fiction yet, because so when next my day ends, then there's a small human that needs my attention and fulfillment. So hopefully that is in the years to come. But absolutely, that's something I really...
Well, it sounds like if you want to do it, you'll have to put it on the list and find a block of time for it.
Exactly, put it on the...
That's what I'm getting from the two of you. And then, so in terms of mentors, how have you found mentors?
Yeah, I think like Inés, in some ways, it's been a kind of very natural sort of encounters. I would say people within my discipline, but similarly, I think going beyond the more formal kind of networking aspect of it is nurturing those relationships. And I think we've talked about we've just mentioned priorities as one really important aspect to be focused on, but then there's also values as well, and those might kind of have a wider sort of application beyond the sort of direct research and work that you're doing. But if you share the same values as the people in your community and you are able to nurture each other in those values and kind of coming together and ideas of community, I think that's such a great thing for this kind of overall topic of kind of well-being and mental health. So I kind of try and seek out mentors whose values I really admire and aspire to, but also try and nurture those relationships, make sure that I'm putting as much into them as I might be getting out of them as well. So that might be, I'm thinking in particular of a wonderful colleague who works actually, I would say, very closely in terms of similar research. We work on very similar things, but she needed help moving house, and I was there, and we had a very sweaty, long day.
This is how we connect.
Exactly, and that's how we connect. And I don't think we spoke about a single piece of British history that day, but I felt that was kind of equally important in nurturing and kind of cultivating.
So it's seeing people that you do admire for their values and how they are, and maybe being prepared to introduce yourself and say hello and kind of go for it. There will be formal mentoring schemes quite often, but who you actually find your inspiration from and help you kind of stay well within the academy can be other people, different people. Okay, so I think that this is a kind of great point to wrap it up on. We've touched on a lot of wonderful things actually and advice for staying well in here, and I'm hearing the messages about knowing your values, setting boundaries, having your priorities, connecting with other people in similar situations or identities with yours and the wider community. But if there was one thing you could leave the kind of people listening with as a bit of advice for staying well and thriving as an ECR, could be something you said, could be something else, what would that be? So maybe I'll ask you first, Maddie, because you caught my eye there.
Again, coming out, one of the things I think you can do coming out of the PhD and moving into that kind of ECR moment is gain a little bit of perspective. I think look at the bigger picture. I think you spent a few years working on something so niche, so important that you held so close to you. But develop into that academic, which is somebody who has, as we said, this career that's got longevity, that's got legs, it really helps to see the whole picture. Yeah, and the whole picture, it's not just a book, it's not just an article, it's not just teaching, it's this whole constellation, this whole network of things that comes together to make the best you.
So really keep your perspective and then focus on what your immediate goals are. Brilliant. Inés, what about for you? What's the one thing?
Yeah, I mean, Maddie, that's such great advice as well. Like, looking at the big picture. For me, I think, and again, I'm not good at this, but I'm trying to be better at this, would be to celebrate every teeny tiny success. Celebrate everything, right? Like, you are submitting a grant, you celebrate the submission of the grant. It doesn't matter. If you get that grant, you don't get it. Just getting that written, celebration. You hand in your PhD, huge celebration too. I mean, you survive a new academic year. We need to celebrate that.
Leave home to go home. Leave from time. Celebrate.
End of marking season, celebrate. And I think in part is because of how precarious the system is. Like you are saying, Maddie, you are forced to be thinking always about the next thing, right? Holding that time to just celebrate our successes and not take anything for granted and think, it's little by little that we are accomplishing these things and creating this path for us and for the people around us, etc. And I think celebration, it is important, and it's not silly.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So we've got have some perspective, so you can do all those other things we said, and just celebrate.
Celebrate, yeah.
And I think many of us needed to hear that. So thank you very much. Wonderful note to finish on. Thank you for listening to Confessions of an Early Career Researcher. I've been your host, Leonie Smith. This podcast was brought to you by the British Academy in collaboration with the Leverhulme Trust.